Is it not a natural thing for a man though to um, be the one to say, okay, I want you as more? I don't know. Maybe this is, I need to talk to some of the younger guys. Um, but is it more natural for a man to say, okay, you know, I want this woman, I want to move on with her. And if I don't say that, if I don't initiate that, that means it's because I don't want that.
Yeah,
So
that's what
part
I
of me
mean. I
like,
don't know if that's a natural
but
thing or a social construct.
but so would you say, well, Darren, what would you say? Like, are there men out there who are like, yeah, I really want this woman, but I'm just gonna, you know, like I'm just gonna sit on it and not. I mean, I guess you do have people who are in those types of relationships. They could be living with a woman and even say that she's a wonderful woman and still not like move forward with the marriage. But is that typical? Like, is that a typical thing, or when a man is ready, he's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna go ahead and move this forward. And I
I
ask
think
that only because my thinking is a little bit like, well, if he doesn't make that step, it's because he doesn't want it. Or what would you all say about that?
I think men, we typically, if we're happy and we're okay with with things, we don't see a reason to change anything, right? So if I'm living with a woman for 3 or 4 years and we're happy, we're everything's going smooth, we're building, we're growing, we learn each other. Marriage might not cross my mind like, oh, it's time to get married. It's just not a big of a deal as it is for women. So I think women do push the issue, and for the sake of pleasing our woman, we will go and get married. Like, okay, we'll propose, but I don't think marriage is a big deal. We don't need that title to validate like um our relationship as much as women do, because women were society says a married woman is a what they call it, what's the word, what's the term they say,
Uh, um, a wife is a good thing. Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
make my
Man?
daughter a good
Oh, okay.
woman,
An honest woman.
yeah, honest woman. Like it seemed like they need that title to be solidified in the world. Men don't need that, so why would we push a marriage and push for that title? And it's just because, like she said, social construct, and the dynamics of that and how women were raised, right? So I think it's a little bit of a teamwork effort to get to that point where women want that marriage, and I think women have to just bear the burden of, hey, if I want this marriage, I need to push more than this man, because the way men were raised, they don't necessarily need this to validate themselves as much as I do to fit to have a place in society. So I think women need to understand that and just be like, and just just take that bullet and say, if they have to propose, yeah, but I don't encourage a woman to propose if she doesn't want to. Now, if a woman wants to, then go ahead. Don't worry about what people say, because I think that's the biggest consequence of a woman proposing is the backlash that she'll get from friends and family and society, calling her dumb, calling her weak, and stuff like that. I think that's the only bad negative thing that can come from that. But other than that, I'll just say go for it, and just
So, but I think sometimes women could put themselves in a really bad situation because, and I've seen this happen where a woman is pushing for marriage or suggests marriage, and the man goes along with it. So now they are married to a man that really doesn't want to be married to them. So I don't know. But I guess, people could say the same thing the other way around. A man proposes to a woman and she's just saying, yes, we don't really know if she really is into it or what. I definitely have some of those old school constructs and that school way of thinking. I've seen situations where women are pushing for a relationship or marriage, and the man is like half in, half out because he never really wanted to be there in the first place. It seems like men typically do take the lead on those things. And maybe that's not natural. I don't know. Maybe that's generational. I don't know. But it's something to think
I
about.
I think it's about also, and going back to the specific woman. And I will I will admit to the fact I have a specific woman in my head that I'm thinking of in terms of the characteristics of some women who do decide to propose. I think she needs to be very careful about really thinking about, okay, I'm going to do this. I mean, I've seen people propose, men propose to women, women propose to men, and they have not had not one conversation about marriage and what that might look like. I have a big problem with that. And they should have a big problem with that. There are so many marriages ending in divorce because nobody wanted to have the conversation about marriage in the first place. You know, and then you have these marriages, you know, that start out with the person proposing, let's say the woman, since we're talking about that tonight. And then now it's like, oh, now we're going to start talking about marriage because now she's proposing. You know, we got people talking about marriage the first year that they married. And it's like, that ain't going to work. You need to have a clear-cut conversation about marriage and commitment before that happens. And I think a lot of times when we, and I will admit, Darwin, I've been one of those people that, you know, I've given the woman a side eye when I saw that she proposed to a guy. I will admit to that because of how I was raised, how I grew up, my spirituality, my spiritual principles. It goes somewhat against that. Okay. I will be the first one to admit that. And however, I also gave it a side eye because y'all just not talking about marriage, or you're doing it because you want to trigger the discussion about marriage. You know, it's like why play the games? You know, like just have the conversation with him about marriage. If you want to know why he hasn't proposed, just like we're pushing her to make that first move, ask him why he hasn't proposed. Okay. These are conversations that I think people need to have when they're dating. That society has told us, oh, that's too intimidating, or oh, you're coming on too strong. If you're a woman who desires to have a man that's going to propose to you, you need to be having a conversation with him early on about these are some of the things that I'm going to desire when I decide that I want to be into something long term. I know I did.
And you know, even with my view of not, I don't believe there's nothing wrong with a woman proposing. I still will give that woman a side eye, only because everybody, when something happens that's is out the ordinary, I think everybody's going to question it. Like, oh, that doesn't usually happen. So it's always going to be that 50-50. Like, why did she propose? Is she desperate? Or does he have some type of hang up about proposing, about marriage, and he just doesn't want to? So I'm all for it, but I'm still going to look at that woman like, hold on, you know, what's going on with this? You know, because it's something different, and anything that's different to society, we deem it to be wrong or weird or just crazy. But that's just natural, right? Just like before gay people came out on TV and stuff like that. When we saw it, it's like, oh my God, why these two dudes kissing? But when you sit down and think about it, it's like, ain't nothing wrong with it. You know, it just was disturbing to our eye because we're not used to seeing it. So we're not used to seeing a woman get down on her knee proposing. So it's gonna be like, man, this ain't right. You know, like, what's going on, sis? You know what I'm saying? You desperate? But you know, we, like you said, we never know why she did it. We never know why he didn't do it. So it's going to always be that assumption that something's wrong instead of maybe this is the dynamic that will work for them.
And I think it's like 5% of women, 5 or 6% of women actually do propose to men.
Yeah.
Out of that 5%, how do you know percent of how are they still married, or what's the divorce rate on that?
See, that's what I'm wondering. Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. And I almost, you know, I want to find somebody that has actually done this like in real time. I've witnessed it.
Where's the stat man at? Rashad's the stat man.
I know, right? We missing him tonight, right? We missing him tonight. But out of those 5% of women, I wonder how many of them actually have had conversations with a man or with men about that they're with and going to propose to. How many times have they actually talked about marriage? You know, and Darwin, you know this as a man. How many times have you heard men say they've dated this woman for a period of time, or they lived with her or whatever, And not even 6 months into it, you could just tell by the way he talks about her, the general way that he speaks on her and their relationship. It's either gonna give you one or two vibes. Oh, she must be the one for him, or he will straight out tell you, this ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.